right, I'd like to call to order the Miamisburg City School Board meeting for November 18th, 2021. Let's stand for the pledge to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Our district mission is to foster a positive, nurturing, and safe environment to inspire and support ongoing learning and the development of individuals as productive members of society. We must be able to conduct our meetings in an orderly fashion. Our expectation at all board meetings is that everyone conducts themselves civilly and respectfully. In the event anyone is disruptive and interferes with the meeting, they will be asked to leave. If they do not, we will request that law enforcement assist in the process. All right, may I have roll call, please?
Mr. Amsler,
Here.
Mrs. Angel,
Here.
Mr. Lewis,
Here.
Mrs. Neese,
Yeah, here.
Mr. Toadvine,
Present.
Dr. Blessing,
Present.
I am here, and Mr. Homan.
Here.
All right, next we have the adoption of our agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay. First by Angel, second by Lewis. Roll call?
Mrs. Angel,
Yes?
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes. Next, we have approval of minutes. The recommended action is to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting held on October 21st, 2021. May I have a motion, please?
I move for the approval of minutes for the regular board meeting held November 18th, October 21st, 2021.
Second.
Okay, first by Amsler, second by Toadvine. A roll call, please.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
All right. Next, we have the approval of our financial report dated October 31st, 2021. May I have a motion?
I'll move for the approval of the financial report dated October 31, 2021.
Second.
It's a tie. Okay. First by Lewis, second by Angel. Any discussion?
I just wanted to again thank the entire Treasurer's Office staff for helping me put together these reports for this evening. I did want to point out we are balanced to the penny, and also wanted to point out the spending plan monthly report. It starts on page 67. It's a really good report to be able to look at the trends that are happening with expenditures, and it corresponds to the specific lines of the 5-year forecast. So at the top you'll see the revenues, and on the bottom you'll see the expenditures as it works its way down the report. And we are on as expected in terms of both budgeted expenses and expected revenues.
Thank you.
Are there going to be any exceptional things that will be going on between now and the end of the year, as far as you know? Is there anything big?
In terms of the calendar year or the fiscal year?
Just the fiscal year of, well, till December 31st of 2021. Are we looking to see any big boiler systems being replaced or anything like that anywhere? as far as you know?
I can defer to Mr. Homan on the timeline, but I can tell you that we are expected to receive our first payment that is based off of the Fair School funding model. That's supposed to happen in December, and it's going to look much different. I'm going to get into that a little bit more in the 5-year forecast presentation, but I will say that really what we're going to be seeing, the biggest changes is that while we don't accept open enrollment, we do have open enrollment going out. And so now that funding is going to follow the student, so we will not see that expense on our foundation, which will then correspond to how it looks in terms of our expenses on the spending plan monthly report and what that will do to the forecast. We'll also start to see success and wellness funds start to be deposited into the general fund as opposed to the 467 fund. And I'll let Mr. Homan talk about any projects.
Yeah, you'll see later on the board agenda, we do have the chiller at Bayer that is on schedule to be replaced. In terms of that, we're trying to be ahead of schedule because, as you know, parts everywhere are very scarce right now. And we're trying to be proactive with getting that on order because it'll be a good 4 to 6 months before that even comes in. So we want to make sure we get that in so we can have installation over the summer.
Okay, thanks. I just was really worried about computers and stuff like that, hopefully it's sitting out on boats that maybe we'll be paying for them sometimes.
Yeah, the shortages are everywhere. If you remember the buses that we purchased, back in maybe August, we got an email this week that they're not even going to be able to start, if possible, even till early February on the order. So, and that's just starting on it, depending if they get where we are in line. So,
Okay.
And to further answer your question too, there's nothing that's unbudgeted that we're expecting to see at this point.
All right.
Everything's budgeted.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, roll call.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes. All right, next we have our recognition of citizens, staff, and students. So we'll have Mr. Amsler announce that our district student of the month, Wyatt Rupert.
The Miamisburg City School District October Student of the Month was Wyatt Rupert. He was nominated by his teacher, Miss Emily Leonard. He was nominated by the 4th grade teachers at Bauer Elementary School. They said, the 4th grade team at Bauer Elementary is happy to nominate Wyatt Rupert as Bauer Elementary School Student of the Month for October. We as a 4th grade team are excited to continue to work with Wyatt and watch him grow as the year progresses. We are so lucky to have him not only as a Bauer student, but also a member of our class. Wyatt is a student who exemplifies our Bauer 3 Bs. Be respectful, be responsible, and be ready to learn. Wyatt is a very respectful student and role model in our class. Wyatt is also a kind student who treats his peers and teachers with respect. Wyatt comes to school every day ready to learn with the biggest smile on his face and usually has a hand-drawn picture of ocean animals to give to his classroom teacher, Mrs. Leonard, which he knows she loves so much. He quietly enters the classroom and follows our morning procedures with routines by preparing himself for the day. When completed, he then begins his soft start activity, which is usually playing with Legos or reading his chapter book of choice. His respectful character carries throughout the day of the school day. Wyatt is also a superb and responsible student, allowing him to be ready to learn on a daily basis. He shows these characteristics by having his work completed on time and well written. He takes pride having a clean and organized desk and backpack and will always double check himself to make sure he has what he needs. He also utilizes his planner agenda every day to make sure his homework and other school information are written down and communicated to his family. During our SEL lessons, In daily classroom meetings, we discuss the expectations of what our classroom community should and want our students to be like. Wyatt was responsible for one of our harmony goals, which are classroom rules students come up with at the beginning of the year. During these lessons and meetings, Wyatt practices these rules and expectations naturally. Wyatt never needs a reminder to be kind to others, include others in activities, or using his manners. One of our favorite things about him is his mannerism. He always says thank you, and when we give him materials during class. Overall, Wyatt works to the best of his abilities every day here at school. He has a strong desire to learn and achieve. He is always engaged, on task, and completes his assignment work with the best of his abilities. And he shows us he is proud of his work. Wyatt shows us he wants to be the best student he can be. Mr. Wyatt, congratulations on being the Student of the Month.
Can you tell us, do you have any special visitors or guests you brought with you tonight? Is that your sister? Okay, so your mom and dad? Okay, well, thank you for coming, and we always give you a Student of the Month medallion. So you like to draw sea creatures or ocean animals? Dinosaurs? So you like fossils? What kind of fossil is that? Any idea? It's a shark's tooth. And they're like millions of years old, so I thought you might like those. You can find them in the ocean. I like to walk along the beach and find them, and I read your bio and I thought you might like those. You're welcome. Smile. Thank you. Well, congratulations.
Other building Student of the Month representatives include Bear Elementary School, Chase Wilson, Jane Chance Elementary School, Emma Bechtel, Kinder Elementary School, Eric Ortiz Gostelman, Mark Twain Elementary School, Bryson Bittendorf, Medler View Elementary, Lisa Bream, Mound Elementary School, Braden Shapiro, and Miamisburg Middle School, Carson Morgan. So congratulations to all those representatives and Mr. Wyatt himself this evening.
Yeah, sounds like a student we would all love to have had in our classrooms, for sure, Wyatt. Next, we have Mark Twain Elementary School. They're going to present their garden and tower gardens.
Before we play the video, I'll just say a few words. I get really excited about sharing this because it has been a project that's been actually a couple years in the process. Started with tower gardens, first one, then 3, 4, 4. Multiplied very quickly. Thanks to Miamisburg Education Foundation and the grant funding they provided, and that my principal, Kelly Lee Parker, was all on board with this and the mess it makes and the fun we've had with it. Going from the tower garden, the staff in 2019, we talked about doing raised bed gardens. We have this huge green space behind the school that was being used for parking lot and nothing. So this is a lot of green space. It was about 50 feet by 62 feet. Measured it, looked at it, and said, wow, let's do something with this that the kids can have fun with. So everybody got on board. We have such an amazing staff. They were all thrilled to jump in and build some raised beds. Cost would be, of course, you always have to consider that, anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. And so also $5 Five Rivers Metro Parks. We thought, well, they could help us out with that, with the planning, with partnering with them, with coaching, and how we could do this. So in 2019, we started, a team of us started to go to workshops. We also looked at Bear Elementary, who had already done it and done it so well, so we were like, yes, let's go see what they did and copy it. And we did that and went to other schools, West Carrollton, some other places that had some really successful gardening programs that fit into the curriculum and enhanced every grade level experience. So that was the goal. In 2020, we were accepted as a seedling school by Five Rivers Metro Parks, which was wonderful, and they teamed up with us in spite of all the craziness of 2020 and the COVID barriers that seem to be presented. You'll see in the video what happened in spite of all of those things and all of those obstacles that we overcame. So Doug Horvath was kind of our liaison, and he was great in supporting us. Carter Lumber donated all the lumber for our raised beds. The mulch man gave us a screaming good deal on dirt. I didn't pay for dirt, but that was one of the most expensive things. But it was great. We got garden soil, and the labor was us and all the many hands that contributed. Virtually every staff and their families contributed. Sarah Slamka's husband made this way cool bird feeder holder thingy that is our bird garden. It's absolutely beautiful, and you'll see that. So it has been this beautiful vision that has really come to fruition over the past 2 years, and it's taken a ton of labor, a ton of effort, a ton of people involved. We got donations also from the auxiliary, what was that? The American Legion. That's it, the American Legion. And then individual families said, we're so excited about what you're doing, let's just give you money. And we said, okay. So we took that and spent it on more garden beautification things. Our librarian with her scholastic money is getting us some shade tents, which will be beautiful. So the staff of Mark Twain and the students and the families have really created a thing of beauty that will continue to give for generations. Generations, I'm happy to say. Not only are we doing this thing together, but it's also been we've been able to partner with some people in the community to give fresh greens in the middle of winter with the Tower Gardens. And that's been a lovely thing. Bog Ministries has a refrigerated food truck. It's like one of the only food pantries that has a refrigerated truck. So they will take our greens in January and February and give people fresh picked greens, which, by the way, we have here for your taking. These were harvested today by kids and staff, and we wear gloves, so it's all clean. And those are harvested from the Tower Gardens, and they're free for you. There's sweet basil. The arugula is really super duper spicy, so just there's your warning. And the bok choy is amazing. We grow amazing bok choy in the Tower Gardens. It's incredible stuff. But this has been a dream really come true, and it's just going to be continuing to give to the kids, the families, the communities, and the staff, because we loved getting dirty with the kids. The kids are phenomenal in the garden. This just getting ready for our garden party, which we just celebrated with Five Rivers Metro Parks. A few weeks ago, we celebrated our partnership and the culmination of this huge project, which was wonderful. But to prepare for that, the fifth graders, I know there are child labor laws about this, but the fifth graders, no kidding, spread close to 40 bags of mulch. So I thought, man, if I could just take you guys home, we'd have it done in a minute. So they spread all this mulch, they amended the soil in the raised beds and did a ton of work, and they were so excited to just keep doing more. So to see kids in that setting is just beautiful, and it's what education's all about. So enjoy.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And that is just the coolest project. I know that if anybody did need to leave the meeting now, free to come up and get your lettuce. You know, if you don't want to stay for the whole meeting. But yeah, thank you so
Ms.
much.
Mott.
Yeah. I know we still need to see the video.
Yeah, we'll see the video,
Yeah.
but do us a favor, okay? Take this back to them.
Yeah.
Just one drop of your love, a single ray of sun, just one thing to change the world. It's just you and me, starting with a dream and giving it all you've got. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Come with me now. Look and see how there's an ocean overflowing with our hope. So let's jump in and take a swim. It's you and me, yeah, forever. Just one drop of your love, a single ray of sun, just one thing to change the world. It's just you and me, starting with a dream and giving it all you've got. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. I need you and you need me. We can do anything together. Just one drop of your love, a single ray of sun, just one thing to change the world. It's just you and me, starting with a dream, giving it all you've got. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop.
Very awesome. That was such a good video. Appreciate it.
I just
Yeah.
want to say, Mrs. Mott, Mrs. Kelly Lee Marker, I think it's fantastic what you have done. And to see the kids' smiles while they're out working is just, it's amazing. So thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. Very cool project.
Thanks, and come and visit Mark Twain if you want to see the garden in action, or just come and harvest. We still have carrots that need to be harvested, fruit, vegetables. So come and see it. We invite anyone to come and help us. It's really a great experience.
Thank you for all the lettuce as well.
Wildlife family was there this spring, up in the spring.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Our wildlife,
Oh,
we
yeah.
had baby bunnies out there.
Oh.
In the spring, and
Oh.
everybody was so excited about it. See them every day, they were so cute.
Monarch butterflies that we saw just emerging from their chrysalises, and it was really incredible. And to be able to be outside without masks for a while for the kids was, I think, that was a lifeline for them, that we could all be outside and enjoy one another and actually see each other's faces. It's the safest place to be during 2020. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the lettuce. That we will enjoy. All right, next we'll move on to our approval to waive the first reading of the resolution to suspend a board policy. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following resolution to suspend the mask requirement and adopt the mask to stay, test to play guidance from Ohio Department of Health and the Dayton and Montgomery County Public Health Department effective immediately. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for the approval to waive first reading of resolution to suspend board policy file EBEA.
Second.
First by Lewis, second by Toadvine. We'll just do the roll call for the waiver, please.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
All right, next we'll move on to the approval of the resolution to suspend the board policy. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following resolution to suspend the mask requirement and adopt the mask to stay, test to play guidance from Ohio Department of Health and the Dayton and Montgomery County Public Health Department effective immediately. And I'm going to have Dr. Blessing speak to us about that, please.
Sure. Back in September, Warren County, which is just the county south of us, some of the schools within that, of course, are Lebanon, Middletown, Springboro, Clinton Massey, Franklin City Schools, Kings Local Schools, 10 total, but the ones closest to us, I think I mentioned. And again, in September, all of the schools saw a very high percentage or even number of quarantines due to the spike in COVID from the Delta variant. So Warren County partnered with the Ohio Department of Health to do this stay in school quarantine. So if a student was considered a close contact, they were allowed to stay in school if the parents agreed to. Then at that point, they were doing some rapid testing. I think they did rapid testing within like the first 2 days of exposure to stay in school. Of course, they had to be willing to wear masks. Some of the districts had mask requirements or mandates and some did not. And then they had to again agree to be tested at day 5 to 7. And after that, they could remove their mask or if they showed a negative test. So they did this for about a month. And on October 25th, the Ohio Department of Health released these new guidelines statewide. So school districts could start pondering after reading the guidance on the pilot in Warren County. They could choose to have discussions with their boards and with their school communities about if they thought the pilot would be something that they would like to adopt. So that's kind of the history behind our recommendation this evening. And in addition to the Ohio Department of Health, the Dayton Montgomery Department of Health also adopted those same quarantine guidelines. And again, the Dayton Montgomery County Public Health is our governing body for our health department, and we, have to kind of abide by what they ask us to do in terms of protecting our students and their public health. So they have also adopted those guidelines. So again, this evening, we are just making that recommendation to the board. Some key things about the mask to stay and test to play guidance. There are a few things that come into play. First of all, the bus mask policy is not governed by the Ohio Department of Health or the Dayton Montgomery Department of Health. It is a federal regulation for our transportation because our school buses are deemed public transportation, just like if you are on a public transit such as a train, a bus, or in an airplane. So if the board chooses to adopt this resolution this evening, we would still have to ask our students and staff members when they ride a school bus to wear their masks. Another area that the K-12 mask to stay, test to play doesn't necessarily fit into that is preschool. So Mrs. Lucas, would you like to share how this resolution would impact preschool and what might look different for them?
Sure. The preschool is governed under ODJFS, Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, and they have their own set of guidelines as far as quarantine rules are concerned. So our preschool are still required to quarantine outside of school if they're considered an exposure, regardless of whether they're wearing a mask or not. So even currently in our mask, with a mask mandate, a preschool student still would have to quarantine outside of school if they're considered a close contact. And that's just because that's under a completely different set of rules than K-12 is.
Thank you. And again, as part of the resolution, it is to suspend the current mask requirement. It is in the resolution that we will continue to monitor the COVID-19 data and also always consider any future federal, state, local guidance as in regard to COVID-19 and the continuation of the 21-22 school year. So it's kind of a summary. Any questions or discussion we can assist with? Questions?
Okay, I'll open it up. I guess I have real reservations about doing this. Today, Montgomery County Health Department said that there is an increase of 32% in Montgomery County of school-aged children getting COVID. We're going into the time of the year when we're all indoors. There's very little outdoor activity. We're going into the holiday season. And I just have concern about the timing of this, so that's where I am. Sure.
Any other discussion?
Well, I think, I have some personal thoughts that don't necessarily agree with what's going on here either, but I think that these people are the experts, and, there is some adjustments that can be made within their, what they're asking us to do as far as keeping kids safe. And I think that that's certainly our top priority is to keep kids safe. So if there are changes, we can make changes too.
And I apologize, I forgot to have the motion first, I'm sorry. So, any more discussion?
You're forgiven.
Okay, so.
I think we all have reservations across the board. We've all talked. We've all had reservations. We all have our reasons for and against. We're all in the same boat as far as keeping our kids safe. It's been a topic of discussion for the past 2 months. If not longer. It's not going away whether you remove the mask or you're in the mask. You're right. It's been on the news for the last 2 days. Morning, afternoon, evening. I've been in every elementary school the whole month of October. I've been in the high school yesterday in 3 different classes. Talked to a number of teachers. There isn't a right answer, and there's not a cure-all. So Dale's right in regards to, we have listened to Montgomery County, we have listened to the superintendent, we've had a task force meeting, there's been a number of discussions, and you just can only make the decision based off the information that you have at hand. And I mean, at least for me, that's how I'm basing my decision, is the information that I have in hand. I could be right, I could be wrong, but I think we've got to make a decision and move forward, and then cross those bridges when those bridges come forth. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, if things, I think what you're saying is absolutely right, Chris, and if things change, the Montgomery County Health Department and the state, they're going to make different, I don't want to call them requirements, but guidances for us, you know, if that happens. And so, and I understand, Sharon, I really had hope in the beginning of all this that we'd wait at least 2 weeks after the Christmas break to see how things go. And we can still do that. We're just going to be looking at it through a different, different set of eyes than we had originally thought we might. But I think the experts are who we got to look to. None of us sitting in here, I don't think, are experts on this topic. So we have to, rely on somebody that's much more close to the medical part of it and use their judgment on what we should do. And I think that's what we are doing right now. And this all came on so quick too, Sharon. I mean, you're right. It's just like, boom, here's a recommendation. But for us, it's quick. But they did run some tests and, areas and stuff like Warren County. And it seemed like it worked there. So hopefully it will for us too.
I guess I just want to say, Montgomery County is not Warren County. We have a different makeup of community members. And when the Montgomery County Health Department said today, there's a 32% rise in the last week of school-aged children getting COVID. And they said, the guidelines stated, if you're going to have indoor groupings, wear a mask. That's what I'm going by. So,
I just wanted to say that I did talk to a parent whose child was in the pilot program and then is now in the Mask to Stay program. And they felt it was going extremely well, that it was a win-win situation. I also talked to a superintendent from the pilot program whose district is now in the Mask to Stay program. He felt it was exceptionally well. He did make me laugh because he said that his daughter had been quarantined and she got caught wearing her mask incorrectly. So you have to quarantine, you have to wear your mask for 14 days unless you get tested on the 5th to 7th day and you're negative. So that was reassuring to me to hear from a parent and a superintendent that has gone through this. Just wanted to add that. And any other comments or discussion? Right. We'll go back to, do we have a motion?
I move for the approval of the resolution to suspend board policy.
Second.
First by Amsler and second by Lewis, and we'll go ahead and do the roll call then.
Mrs. Angel,
no.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
All right. That resolution has passed. Next, we'll go on to our consent agenda. The approval of overnight extended student trips It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight extended student trips: Jared Levin, APES, AP Biology; Greg Pitroff, Ohio State Stone Labs, South Bass Island, August 31st, 2022, or September 7th, 2022, or September 14th, 2022. Then B, approval of out-of-state travel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following out-of-state travel: Caitlin Colson, Bands of America Grand Nationals, Indianapolis, Indiana, November 11th, 2021. And then the two staff members that we mentioned earlier as well. And then we have the approval of resolution. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following resolution to employ an individual who does not hold a post-secondary degree as a substitute teacher for the 2021-22 school year only. Then approval of the class of 2022 early graduates. Michael Black, principal of Miamisburg High School, has recommended Sophia Large for early graduation pending satisfactory completion of all state and local requirements. Approval of tuition-free senior enrollment, item E. It is recommended by the superintendent and high school principal that the Board of Education approves Haley Elizabeth Hughes and Kylie Marie Wilson for tuition-free enrollment for their senior year. This permission is only granted to a 12th grade student who previously attended Miamisburg High School as a resident pupil during their 11th grade year. And F, approval of an instructional materials adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the use of the following instructional materials: AP French Workbook, Vista Higher Learning, AP French Language and Culture Exam Preparation. And G, presentation and acceptance of Consolidated School Report, Nutrition Services, 2021 Compliance Report. It is recommended by the superintendent to approve the Consolidated School Report, Nutrition Services, 2021 Compliance Report. And H, approval of board member trainings. In accordance with Board Policy BHBA, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following request for training as offered by the Montgomery County Educational Service Center. On February 12, 2022, the Annual Board Members Institute. Ann Neese, Chris Amsler, our new board member that will be sworn in January, Corey Daffler, Tim Lewis, and Dale Tovine. And then I, approval of consent items A through H. Oh, okay, do I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda items A through H.
Okay. Aye. Okay.
But it says
I
H
saw
right
it.
here.
I know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second.
Okay, so first by Angel, second by Toadvine. Do we have any discussion on any of the items?
The training, I'm going to be at a PGA event in Phoenix, so I won't be there. I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
Oh, you wouldn't give up.
You need to change that, yeah.
Priorities.
Stacy said she'll go for me.
Anything else? Do you want to speak to anything, Steve or Mr. Hummel
mean, the
or
Senate
Mrs.
bill-
Blessing?
Yeah, sorry, the
Dr.
Senate bill,
Blessing.
one, the substitute qualifications, I mean, I just kind of want to put out a request to all of our patrons and community members tonight. So if you know someone who might not have a 4-year degree but would be interested in being a substitute teacher, please send them our way. We do need employees, like I know a lot of you do in the workforce. But if you know someone who may be interested in working in the schools but didn't think they could because they needed that degree, please send them our way. We'd love to have them. So we will provide them training and make sure they feel familiar in our schools and in our classrooms. So thank you.
Good to know.
All right. Anything else? Roll call?
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to our human resources agenda items. Approval of personnel reports, certificated and classified. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel reports. Employment in the Miamisburg City School District is contingent upon the candidate submitting to and passing a BCII and FBI criminal record check in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code and pre-employment drug screening in accordance with adopted board policies. Do I have a motion?
I move for the approval of personnel reports, certificated and classified.
Second.
Okay, first by Amsler, second by Lewis. Mr. Hellman, did you want to?
Nothing out of the ordinary, just normal business.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mrs. Angel.
Yes.
All right, next we have the approval of personnel report, certificated, classified, supplemental stipend. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel report for the certificated, classified, supplemental stipend. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for the approval of personnel report, certificated, classified, supplemental stipend.
Second.
First by Lewis and second by Angel. Mr. Hellman? Nothing?
Just
Okay.
normal monthly business.
Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mrs. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine, sorry.
It says Mrs.
I read it. Mr. Lewis, Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
All right.
Brenda did that on purpose.
Next we go to agreements and contracts. First, we have the approval of Teamsters Local 957 negotiated agreement extension. It is recommended by the superintendent to approve this negotiated agreement extension with Teamsters for an additional 1 year through June 30th, 2023. And then B, approval of agreement with Kettering City School District. It is recommended by the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Kettering City School District to enter into a shared services agreement. And C, approval of agreement with Wable Energy Systems. It is recommended by the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Wable Energy Systems to replace the chiller at Bear Elementary School. And D, approval of agreement with Frontline Education. It is recommended by the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Frontline Education. And E, approval of an agreement for a satellite program between the Miami Valley Career Technology Center and Miamisburg City School District. It is recommended by the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Miami Valley Career Technology Center to implement a well-coordinated career technical education to create and operate a STEM high school satellite program within Miamisburg City Schools. And F, approval of agreement with Senior Assistance Incorporated. It is recommended by the Superintendent and Director of Student Services to enter into an agreement with Senior Assistance for student transportation to St. Rita School for the Deaf. And then G, approval of memorandum of understanding between System Management Group and the Miamisburg City School. The superintendent recommends approval of the memorandum of understanding between Systems Management Group and Miamisburg City Schools to provide Sanford Harmony, a no-cost social emotional learning program for pre-K to 6th grade and professional development training for the 2021-22 school year. And then H, approval of agreement and contracts, items A through G. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve agreements and contracts, items A through G. And a motion, please?
I move for the approval of item H.
Second.
All right, so first by Toadvine and a second by Amsler. And
I'll go first.
yeah,
I think
okay.
I have the most. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, A is the approval of the Teamsters agreement for 1 year to line it up within the teachers. We wanted to kind of keep them on the same cycle as teachers as we look at healthcare and those types of things. So we're very grateful to the Teamsters for agreeing to the 1 year agreement, working with us to get everyone on the same cycle for that. For the Weibel Energy Systems, that goes back to Mr. Toadvine's question about the chiller and things like that. So using that in terms of some of our ESSER monies that is out there to help us with the maintaining of the buildings and things like that. It's getting close. If you remember, we had one go down at Mark Twain, so we're trying to avoid that. They were replaced at the same time, and they're getting close to being ready to, or they're put in the same time, but it's starting to show some signs that Mark Twain did before. So we're trying to be ahead of the curve with that and to get that. So that's why we want to get it on now and hopefully have it by the time summer gets here. So the approval of the front line, it's for the next 2 year agreement. They were able to give us a price break. In terms of that, front line is the ASOP calling system that used for substitutes, both certificated and classified. So bundling it together since we're ready to the 1 year, they're giving us 2 more with that, and able to use with ESSER monies as well for that. So, and then the senior assistants, we are actually switching companies. We had one earlier in the year where we were transporting a student to St. Rita School for the deaf, and we just need to find a better option to transport them there in terms of that. So we approved it with one company at the beginning of the year, but we need to go ahead and kind of switch gears to get a little bit better service.
And that is a service that we are not able to provide right now.
Correct.
Correct.
And I will put a plug in for bus drivers here as well, everywhere.
Yeah.
We'd love to have more bus drivers. So our goal is always, we want to keep our things in-house. And we talked with Teamsters at the start of the year. We just don't have enough to cover. So that's why we had to get some assistance. So, and I think those are all my goodies on this one.
And I think Mrs. Moore wants to talk a little bit about the satellite program, and then Stacy has a few contracts if she'd like to, I mean, Mrs. Lucas, if she'd like to address those.
Well, I'm very excited to talk about our partnership with the Miami Valley CTC and bringing a STEM program to the high school. We've always talked about bringing more career tech programs. We know it's hard to find teachers with finances and facilities, but we now have the opportunity to partner with the CTC and bring a teacher over from the CTC. It will be a CTC staff member, so they are paid from the CTC. And we will be offering Intro to Engineering and Robotics next year to students in grades 9 through 12 at Miamisburg High School. They are year-long classes. The CTC also provides any of the equipment, the laptops, the VEX kits and the robots. We just have to provide a space, and I've worked with Mr. Black, and we had an idea for a room, but now we're throwing out ideas of maybe some shifts and what will be the best space for this program. With this program, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer because the finances, it isn't a financial burden on us to bring the program. We've always wanted an engineering and robotic type STEM program. It also then offers kids that finish these classes, they can tap into the Tech Prep Sinclair Scholarship. They also can earn industry credentials, which is another pathway to graduation. They can participate in web exams, and some of the courses they can tap in and get college credit. So this is a great opportunity for us. We hope to fill this Teachers' Day with students and have students on a wait list, and hopefully continue to grow and add more satellite programs. I think Mr. Black and I are kind of fighting over what the next one would be, and what our ideas are, but we're really excited.
So a couple of contracts on my part. Kettering City Schools, they changed preschool rules on us, and when a student qualifies for what we call itinerant services, used to be that you only had to provide that in your geographic area. Now, if they are your resident student, you do have to provide it regardless of where they are where they are for daycare or preschool. So Kettering happens to have one of our young guys over there. So we are entering in an agreement with them to provide the services for us rather than having to send a teacher over for one student to do that. So that's what that agreement is. And then the other agreement on there is the Sanford Harmony MOU, and that is a SEL, social emotional learning curriculum that we used last year as well. So this is kind of a repeat agreement. And entering into the MOU allows us to not only use the program for free, but also to get professional development as well in how to use it. So I think those are my two that are on there.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions?
I'm just glad to see we're having a partnership with the CTC and bringing program, and I'd love to see more of them at the high school, and I know Mr. Black would too.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
Joe, did you have anything on that to add or anything?
I'm just really pleased to see it. Obviously we have 27 partner schools that we work with, and a number of them we do have satellite programs. And, let's face it, things have changed over the years. Going back many, many years when I was in school, and of course Dale was in school, school systems tried to have their own career technology facilities. And over the years, you've seen so many of them shut down. Mm-hmm. We have the facilities, the wherewithal to be able to do that and bring it to the local school system. So, yeah, I'm really pleased that we're going to be able to do that in Miamisburg and hopefully expand upon that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, Nick, roll call, please. Oh, okay. Threw me off with going to Joe. All right. Financial agenda items. A, authorization for amendment to the appropriations and certificate of estimated resources. It is recommended by the treasurer, CFO, that the appropriations and certificate of estimated resources be amended as listed in the attached reports. B, authorization to request advance of tax settlements 2021, collection year 2022. The treasurer CFO is hereby authorized to request advances on 2021 tax settlements from the county auditor. C, approval of district 5-year forecast for fiscal year 2022. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the fiscal year 2022 five-year forecast as submitted to the Ohio Department of Education. D, approval of then and now invoices. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the presented invoices for payment. E, approval of financial items A through D. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve financial items A through D. May I have a motion, please?
I move for the approval of the financial items A alpha through D delta.
Second.
Okay, first by Amsler and second by Angel. Is that correct? Okay. All right, and then our treasurer, John SB, not only has a five-year forecast report, but he could speak to the other items as well.
Sure. So I'll start with the first item A. This is just us dialing in our budgeting, whether it be on the expenditure side or the revenue side. Very small changes from the prior month. It's just a habit that we're going to do this every month, just to make sure that we're in compliance with the auditor. We are asking for an advance of the tax settlements to be able to tap into that funding sooner rather than later. If we have that funding, we're able to, do things such as investing in. We can try to make at least somewhat of a bit of interest on it at the present time. I will get to the five-year forecast. I'll do that last. I did want to talk about the then and now invoices. This is when we have an invoice prior to having a purchase order. And any time that this happens and it's greater than $3,000, I'm required to bring it to you for approval. These two happen to be one of the parochial schools in our district that we receive auxiliary funds for. I've gone ahead and informed them that I will not be recommending any further than now invoices if we are not following our board policy. So I just want to let you know about that. And now I'll jump into the five-year forecast. I'll do the presentation. So in the first slide, you're going to see in red, those are our projected expenditures. As you can see, they do go higher than the blue line, which are our revenues. And as we see them drop off out in fiscal year 25 and 26, that is primarily due to our emergency and substitute levies expiring. And so that green line is going to show that drop in cash balance. And I'll get into a little bit more of that in future slides. On the next slide, you can see in the green is going to be the ending cash balance. We are required to have at least a 60-day cash balance before we can see citing from the auditor's office. What you actually see here is that this is actually showing the cash balance, projected cash balance with the levy renewals if we were to renew both of the emergency and substitute levies. So you can still see out in fiscal year 26, we're still projected to have a negative cash balance. Also, things to look at in the next slide are true cash days. The easiest way to think about this is if we receive no more funding at the present time, how many days could we survive with our daily expenditures? And that's kind of showing that. Again, we want to have a 60-day cash balance, and you can see that in fiscal year 24, it drops slightly below that, and then gets a little bit more adverse as we go out in future years. On the next slide, you can see the revenue in blue, expenditures in red. Really what we've seen is that we were on a trajectory to have expenditures over revenues, really going back into fiscal year 18 and 19. What's happened is we had reductions from the state in fiscal year 20 and 21 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then what we saw were ESSER payments coming in, Coronavirus Relief Fund. Those total really about $14 million over the span of fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 24. And so really what the ESSER dollars have done and COVID relief fund have done have just kind of masked the fact that there's been a trajectory of expenditures over revenue. And so I just wanted to point that out. It has allowed us to extend out going negative, but it's still a reoccurring thing that we need to be aware of. On the next slide, you can see exactly where the revenue comes from in terms of whether it's coming from the state or it's local. I did want to point out that with the Fair School Funding Plan, it's projected that in this fiscal year, on average, students' base cost for the district is about $7,300, and the state foundation payment, or the state part of what they're contributing to that average student, is $2,691. So the difference is made up by local tax revenue, specifically property taxes, or in the other local, and a very small bit of it is that tangible tax, the 3%, and that's being phased out. It's been starting to phase out for several years, so we're going to see that orange slice of the pie get smaller and smaller. I also did want to bring up that House Bill 110, which is otherwise known as the Fair School Funding Plan, it does provide us some net positives because, as I spoke to Mr. Toadvine earlier, we're not going to have that exiting money for open enrollment where we might have had students attending other schools. So that's going to be helpful. We won't see any revenue change in that, and if we do, it'd be minimal. But going on to the next slide, we're going to see the local versus state funding, and I think this kind of drives the point home that as you see that red, that is really the local revenue stream of what we depend on to educate kids. And then the orange is going to be what the state is doing. You can see it drops a little bit in fiscal year 20, and again, that's just because of the budget reductions that we saw due to COVID-19. You'll hear me say this a couple times. It's kind of cut off on this, but it is absolutely critical for our finances that we renew both the emergency and substitute levy. It's going to be a reoccurring theme in the next couple slides. So as we look at the operating considerations on the next slide, again, 35.6% of our revenue is coming from the state, and that again is driven home by that $7,300 versus $2,600 difference that I brought up between what an average student costs versus what we're getting from the state for that student. ODE is actually delayed. We were supposed to get the first payment on the Fair School Funding Plan, or House Bill 110, in October. It's taken a little bit longer to get that worked out, so we're expecting to see that. The first payment will be the December 1 payment that we get. Right now, we're still using simulations to build this modeling. You will also see, again, districts pay specifically to where they basically get funding based off of what students are in the seats. That's the easiest way to think about it, and that's going to be going forward. Some good things I think to think about: the Success and Wellness funding that started in fiscal year 20 through Governor DeWine's office has now been brought into the general fund. So now it's pretty much guaranteed that we're going to continue to get that Success and Wellness funding, but it's going to be coming into the general fund. And again, I brought up we're receiving a little bit less, $186,000 in TPP reimbursement, and that was that orange slice of the pie that I brought up earlier. And again, that $6.7 and $7.2 million that we receive from those emergency levies are really, really important in terms of going forward for the district. And I think, we have these conversations all the time with the administrative team, but continuing to see how we can find ways to reduce the expenses without reducing the services. I think that's really something that we've already had conversations on in my short time here. I'm sure we're going to continue to do that. If you look at the next slide, this is where it shows a breakdown of our expenses. And we are sitting higher than average. It's typical that districts have 80% in salaries and benefits, and we're sitting about 85%. So that's something to keep in mind as we go forward, to see exactly where all of the breakdown of our operating expenses happen. If you go onto the next slide, you can see that between fiscal year 20, 21, and 22, you can see in the red, that's actually salaries. That actually starts to drop because we were using ESSER-related funds to go ahead and what we would call supplant, which means we're allowed to, with those ESSER funds, utilize those funds for expenses that the district already had. And that's what we've been doing. And again, that's what's allowed us to stretch out that cash balance going negative out into the future years and year 4 and 5 of the forecast.
Hey, John, one of the questions that I know people are always out there, there's been a lot of, I call rumors out there with different groups that, okay, well, you have to do certain things or you have to follow compliance in order to receive ESSER funds. And I just want to be very clear. You know, for example, there are some groups out there like, well, if you don't mask kids up, then you're not going to get ESSER funds. And I just want to make that very clear that those are not true statements. So I know there's been a push out there, so I just want to have you just verify that our hands are not tied by having to say we've got to do certain things for our kids or do certain things in order to get the funds.
So there are certain things that we do have, Stacy and myself and Laura, when we sign off to draw down federal funds, that we say we're doing. But it's essentially just saying that we're following the guidelines of what the grant is and that we're following those assurances. At no point have I had to sign anything that says the kids have to be masked up in order to get the money. So thank you for bringing that up. So I'm looking now on the next slide, which should have, yeah. So this is a really good way to illustrate what the missing revenue from not renewing the levies would be. So in that green, up in the fiscal year 24, 25, 26, that would be the loss of revenue that we would see from not being able to renew those levies. Okay, and then the next slide, please. So again, House Bill 110 does have some net benefits for us. Overall, it doesn't make a lot of changes to the bottom line. However, keeping in mind with House Bill 166, there was the cut in fiscal year 20 and 21 of $1.4 million. Again, as I talked about before, the ESSER funds allowed us to kind of push the negative out into future years, but the underlying trend of what's happening with expenditures to revenue is continuing, and it's continued. It's just slightly masked with those ESSER funds. We're still going to have the costs of College Credit Plus, which, you know, it's a great program, but it does cost the district. I think it's sometimes billed as it's free, and it's not free. It actually costs the district when we do have students that are participating in that. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, I'm going to say again, the 2 levy renewals, which would be at no tax increase, are going to be very, very important going forward. Does anyone have any questions?
I was just wondering, you know, with that exiting money for open enrollment, how many thousands of dollars does that amount to?
I can pull that. I can pull that specifically.
Okay.
But I know it's several $100,000.
Okay.
But the issue is that there's so many things that are changing with this new fair school funding that you've got maybe some less revenue coming in, but way less expenditures. But then in another place, you're going to have expenditures going up, and so it's really difficult. It's going to be really difficult to stack up forecasts from the last couple years and then stack this next one up, especially when you're looking at all the changes with the ins and outs of the fair school funding plan.
If I'm hearing you right, though, even with the renewals, there's going to have to be either some changes in expenses, but by 25 and 26, there's probably going to have to be a way to bring new money in or really cut expenses. Am I correct?
That's correct. I do also want to point out, though, that the fair school funding, until we start seeing it and seeing how they're actually calculating, we're going to know a lot more, I think, in May, once we've lived on that formula for 5 months.
Stacy, how many college credit plus kids do we have now, roughly? We above 250? We're not?
We are lower than we have been in previous years.
Is that due because of those facilities were more or less shut down as well during COVID and everything?
No, I think, I don't think it's because they were shut down, I think kids
Lost interest?
lost interest.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Right. Thank you, Mr. SB. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
Next, we move on to acceptance of donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following list of donations. All monies will be used through each school's 018 account unless indicated otherwise. 4 $25 Kroger gift cards and 8 $20 Walmart gift cards from Kathleen Casper to the Miamisburg City Schools Community Connections Program. Masks, which we'll still need for the buses and for kids that still want to wear masks, are valued at $3,000 to the Miamisburg City School District from Hope for Miamisburg, $200 from St. John's Lutheran Church Women to the Miamisburg City Schools Community Connections Program, $1,500 from MHS Viking Boys Soccer Parents Booster for a staff stipend. The following donations were made to the Miamisburg City Schools for the Campus Quest program project. $100 from Anonymous, $500 in memory of Charlotte Bonifay, and $700 from the Miamisburg High School class of 1955. A motion, please.
I'll move for the acceptance of donations.
Second.
Right, first by Lewis, second by Toadvine. Any discussion? Well, thank you so much for all the donations. Roll call?
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
Right, and next we need to go on to our organizational meeting information. We need to establish the date for our beginning of the year organizational board meeting. So it is, we need to decide on a date tonight, and I was kind of proposing maybe Thursday, January 6th, or if you feel like the next week is best.
Well, you've had enough? You want to be done as soon as possible? We come back to school on the 3rd, right?
Yes,
And then we have our regular board meeting the 20th.
sounds right.
Yes.
Doesn't matter to me, the 6th or the 13th. I can do either or.
Usually you try and do it as early in January as you can.
Yeah, just because I know Mrs. Angel's term ends December 31st. So
So I don't care when you set it. I'm just saying, try and do
yeah,
it.
but I
Early
mean,
in
yeah, I was just
January.
thinking we wouldn't want to go with just four board members for too long of a time.
Where's
So
Corey?
would the 6th be okay?
Look
I
at
already
Corey
checked
right
with
now.
him.
Does that work
Yeah.
for you? I mean, there's no sense in us having if you can't be there.
Yep, I already checked with him. He was good with it. So yeah. So that sound good? Okay. So,
What time do we want to do it?
What time?
5 o'clock, would that work for everyone, or do we need a different time? Did I mention the time to you, Mr. Daffler? Okay, all right.
Mr. Ambler's usually the problem child, so.
I'll be off.
Oh, I forgot,
I'll be
yeah.
in Texas. All right, 5 o'clock.
Okay, so we have that finished. And then the appointment of President Pro Tem for the organizational meeting.
Well, that's definitely you.
Yeah, I think it's always the current board member, board president, so. All right, so we have, that's all worked out, right?
Well, where
Okay.
we're gonna meet at?
Oh, good question.
Down at the PD
Says-
room.
PD room.
Okay.
PD room.
Okay, so the PD room, January 6th at 5 o'clock. All right, next we can go on to reports, and we'll start with the MVCT News, Joe Isaacovich.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It was good to see everyone at the annual OSBA conference. It was nice to get back to an in-person conference, and I know the sessions I attended were very good, so take some good information back to CTC. Point of note, MVCTC will be hosting our sophomore career days on November 30th, December 1st and 2nd, and it concludes on December 2nd with an open house that evening where the families are invited, and we will be serving a free spaghetti dinner. Over the 3 days, we'll host approximately 3,500 students and guests from our partner school districts. Upcoming dates, obviously Thanksgiving break, November 24th, 26th. Again, our sophomore career days, November 30th to December 2nd. December 10th, we're having our annual FFA, Future Farmers of America Charity Auction in conjunction with the Ronald McDonald House. December 16th, last day for students before holiday break, and our holiday break will be December 17th through January 3rd. Another item, we have a number of FFA students that we are involved in that are given a green hand degree at the November FFA meeting. And what that means, it's given to our first year FFA high school students who've demonstrated a thorough understanding of FFA and the purpose, and have a supervised agricultural experience plan. And basically from Miamisburg, under the Animal Care and Management Program, we had Taylor Oberer and Jenna Samples. In the Diesel Power Technologies Program, we had Noah Smith. Natural Resource Management Program, Donovan Knipp, or Knipp. And Veterinary Science, Haley Mull, all from Miamisburg, so that was good to see. Also, our adult education program, there was an article recently in the Dayton Daily News. A new job center has been opened up in West Dayton, and an old Aldi store, and it was a $2 million project, and Sinclair and MVCTC are involved in that program. And basically, we will be helping the residents get a high school equivalency diploma and move through the adult education program to earn credentials. So we're pleased to be doing that for adult education. Also, during the month of October and moving into November, our construction team has been focused on making progress, especially on what we call our multi-purpose activity center, or what used to be called the SAC, the Student Activity Center. And basically they've been working through with flooring, ceilings, walls, and we'll soon be moving our kitchen equipment in, and it'll allow us to have our kitchen equipment and begin connections in mid-November. On what we call the spine, which runs the length of the building, we've poured all the second floor and first floor slabs, and based on that, the spine should be dried in by the end of this year. Also, work continues on the agricultural complex. Our first two buildings have been worked on, slabs poured, framing, siding, and roofing. And our students actually got to work on our new pasture and plant it this fall, giving us a head start for the growing season in the spring. And lastly, Gil Bain, our construction manager, held a topping off ceremony at the construction site to signify the placement of the last piece of structural steel for the project, and it was signed off on by all the steel workers, and it was well attended. And after a short ceremony, Gil Bain provided lunch to all the steel workers as a thank you. But the neatest thing was that the actual crane operator was a graduate of CTC, so it was cool. Other than that, that's all I got. Questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
That is neat about the crane operator. Very
Yeah,
cool.
it truly was. And if you want to see the progress on the project out there, you can go to www.mvctc.com, and on the front page there's a construction link, and you can see the photographs and everything we've been doing. So, thank you.
Well, thank you. And then next we have our legislative liaison, Sharon Angel.
Okay, and the legislature has been busy. The House Primary and Secondary Education Committee passed Senate Bill 229, which it included a lot of things, but the ones that I'll highlight, it will exempt districts from retaining a student under the third grade reading guarantee for this school year, 21-22, but would require the district to consult with the parent on the decision with the principal and a reading teacher as to whether the student should be retained. It'll prohibit the use of chronic absentee measure on the state report card for this year, and will add 2 school district superintendents and a school principal to the state report card review committee, which I think is a good thing to have our representation there. It will also require public schools to integrate the study of economic and financial literacy into one or more of the existing social studies credits or content for another class for students graduating between 22 and 25. So that will be something new the high school will be offering our students, which I think is a good thing because many of them need that. It will also require the state to recommend a job description for school counselors. I wasn't sure they didn't have one. I didn't know they didn't, but also it would require school district superintendents to file a report with ODE regarding a teacher who retired under threat of disciplinary investigation, in addition to those who resigned under the threat of disciplinary investigation. The other big one that affects most school districts is House Bill 126, which I'm sure you're aware of, John. This will require the school district, the school board, to send written notice to property owners indicating the intent to file a complaint or a counter complaint. And in our district, we only file complaints on businesses where there's a large discrepancy. Am I correct, John?
Yes, our attorneys actually advise us when they see a valuation that they think is outside of the norm. And then also sometimes, there's Board of Revision tax filings to lower values of businesses.
Right. So it's just going to add one more step or two more steps in the process. And
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the main thing you're asking is does the school pursue things that we're going to lose money on?
which we don't.
By the time you pay lawyer fees and stuff, that could possibly happen, but
We
that's not
typically
supposed to
don't do
happen.
that. But still, it's just adding a step to
Yeah.
those that we are going to pursue. And there's also House Bill 458, which would eliminate August special elections, except for when there is a U.S. House of Representatives that would be on the ballot. So that's just a few of the things our legislatures are talking about right now.
All right. And then I believe Mr. Amser has already read all the student achievement sections or nominations. And then Mr. Lewis on the Montgomery County Drug Free Coalition. I don't believe they've met, have they?
Nothing till January.
Okay, all right. And then I'll read the district news and information. The latest Making a Difference honoree is Miamisburg High School Assistant Principal Zach Klein. Zach was nominated by Jason Curry, who said, "Talk to various staff members and they will tell you about our new assistant principal who is full of energy, positive and optimistic, student-centered, but also mindful of the teachers and staff and what they need to be effective on a daily basis." The full nomination can be read at miamisburgcityschools.org. And he was a former teacher in our district, so I do believe that he would be very mindful of the teachers and staff. The MHS Boys Cross Country ended their season second in districts, broke an MHS school record, and earned Seth Elking and Innocent Natwali a trip to state. Seth finished in 8th place and earned all Ohio. The girls soccer team were GWAC sectional champions and district runner-ups. During the season, Dara Russo set the school career goal record with 58 goals. Dara will continue her soccer career at University of South Carolina Upstate. On Saturday, November 6th, the Miamisburg Marching Band brought Carvana to Mason High School and placed second with a score of 87.2. The Color Guard captured the Best Auxiliary Award. Sunday, the MHS Band earned the 13th consecutive state superior ratings in Class AA. These Vikings qualified for OMEA state finals early in the year with their grand champion performances at Hamilton and Kettering events. Signing Day saw 6 MHS athletes commit to further their academic and athletic careers at the next level. Austin Culbertson, baseball at the University of Northwestern Ohio. I'm not sure how to say that. And is it just NA1A?
NAIA.
NAIA? Okay, thank you. Seth Elking, cross country and track, University of Cincinnati, NCAA Division I. Mackenzie Johnson, volleyball, Grand Valley State University, NCAA Division II. Anna Long, basketball, Binghamton University, NCAA Division I. Blake O'Brien, baseball, Earlham College, NCAA Division II. And Dara Russo, soccer, University of South Carolina Upstate, NCAA Division I, made their commitment on November 10th, 2021. Congratulations to all. Next, we're going to move on to the Board of Education and Administration comments. And do you want to start with Mr. Toadvine?
Okay, first of all, the conference this year, the High School Board Association Conference, was very interesting to be back face-to-face with people. There was a very, very good turnout, I thought. They had a lot of good sessions. I can say that I actually learned quite a bit, and I've been doing this for, well, I guess I'll be the senior member after December, but it was good. It was a good 3 days, going to the sections and stuff, and listening to experts discuss things. It's very good to hear about the joint adventure with NVCTC and with the STEM program. I think that's a step in the right direction, and I hope that we continue to have that grow, have more participation and stuff with other the elementary gardens. That was very interesting. I can remember when they did the tower thing, and that was really, really nice. And then it just kept growing too. And I guess that's kind of a play on words. That's the garden that was growing. But and then congratulations to the band members and all the athletes for a fantastic year so far. I think they all really, really made us proud. So thanks to all of them. And I'm done because I couldn't remember what I was going to say up there, and I embarrassed myself. How do you do?
Well, I had a couple things written down that have already been addressed, but I just wanted to congratulate our 6 high school student athletes that signed their letters, national letters of intent. And I have to say, I'm sorry, but way to go, Russo. I've been saying that to her since she's been about 8. But also wanted to congratulate our high school marching band, Stephen Aylward, and his staff, and our color guard. What a great season they had, and we're lucky to have them. So, Sharon?
I'll just say ditto. Congratulations, the band had a fantastic season. All of the student athletes, congratulations for the hard work you put in. And I just want to say everyone enjoy their Thanksgiving vacation. Enjoy yourself with your families and be safe and have fun and come back ready to work.
I again will say ditto. I also want to thank, I know the guys standing in the back of the room have had a long day. Plus they've been standing for almost 2 hours now, so I would say thanks to our police department that's in the back of the room tonight. I also would like to say Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody and our staff. Have a safe holiday moving forward. And I'll just end with this. I shouldn't say anything, but I'm going to. People that talk over the last 2 months, we do listen. We may not respond on that particular night, but we do listen. And we do understand their passion, either side. And I'm not going to get into that discussion. If you think for 1 minute that this decision on any one of us that sit up here to remove masks in school is a easy decision for any of us, no matter what our personal views are, you're sadly mistaken. So with that being said, I will say thank you to all of you have done, all 3 of you, including everybody that sat out here. You guys have been in just as many meetings, if not more, and answered more emails and phone calls than I can even possibly imagine. So I will tell you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's a hard decision, and it's a decision that I feel comfortable with moving forward, but it's not an easy decision. We care for the kids. We care for our staff, and we care for our community, point blank. With that,
Yeah.
I'll move on.
I would ditto that, and I think that this board really does have our students at our heart. I just wanted to say thanks to our treasurer, John Espy. He's streamlined our board meeting a little bit. I know tonight seems a little long, but I think with the procedures he's put in place, it'll reduce the time, less motions, less roll calls. So thanks, John. Also, I just wanted to say something about the band. It's just been amazing. I know you all said something already about the band and guard, but I know there were 3 competitions where they were the overall grand champions, and that was at Hamilton, Kettering, and Centerville. And then at the OMEA state finals, they had a superior rating from all judges. I don't know exactly what happened in Indianapolis. I know we didn't place, but was there any kind of accolade there?
There was. So they take the top 30 bands, and we were number 31 in there, which is they wish it would have gone to semifinals, but if a lot of your big bands from Texas and Oklahoma, where they have several marching bands, to be in the top third across the nation, that's pretty remarkable. And we are extremely grateful and blessed to have Steve and Ryan and Heather. Many compliments to them, but yeah, we hung in with the big dogs from out west and all that. So
it's really something to be proud of, and yeah, thanks to the band and guard directors and of course the students. Thank you. And then that's it for me, Mr. Epsy.
I just wanted to say it's been great to continue to get to know the community, get to know everyone. It's been a little hectic having to come in and work on a forecast right out of the gate, but I just want to say this is an awesome place with awesome people that really mean the best, and I think that this team here is really, really awesome, and I'm looking forward to getting to know people better now that I can get my head out of the 5-year forecast a little bit, at least for a couple months.
Nice job on the 5-year forecast, Mr. Espy. Very well done. Want to be quick because it's been a long evening. Mr. Black and I and Mr. Neubauer visited Milton Union High School today and toured their satellite program, so that was great to kind of see another STEM program in action. I'm very excited. Thank you, the board, for allowing us to enter into that agreement and have our satellite program. Looking forward to that. Mrs. Anise and I, as well as Mrs. Dobson, have started having some preschool promise meetings with Montgomery County, and Mrs. Busick was able to attend last week as well from our preschool. So more information to come, but looking at ways to offer more opportunities and programs to our families. So very excited about that. And then we also had a DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion workshop. Was it earlier in November? Was it? Okay, I can't remember if it was late. And so we had a lot of our staff members participate in that. These are all kind of initiatives for our strategic plan. So we're hoping maybe in October to share a little bit about what our goals are this year. And since we had a lot of business tonight, we'll maybe address that next month. So, and I know this is kind of cheesy and corny, but my mom always says, "What are you thankful for the holidays?" And as John, I am still fairly new to the district, and of course I've been here through all of COVID or most of it. It's a great team, and I'm very thankful for all of you, for our parents, our students, our staff members, our board. We truly are blessed. So I hope everyone has a wonderful and restful Thanksgiving, and I hope to see a lot of you at the turkey trot. I'm getting really excited about it. So anyway, thank you.
just did, I'm going to put one more plug in for subs out there because I would not be doing my job if I didn't. The subs all across, no matter what classification. I'm still going to put another plug in for bus drivers. And as we said before, even if you're not sure, it's not as scary as people think because you're a big yellow vehicle on the road and people kind of stay away from you sometimes. So, you know, but seriously, and if you're interested in driving or anything, you know, come talk to us. We can go down there and answer any of your questions, but it's a great district to work for, so.
All right, thank you. Well, let's move on to public comments. Each person addressing the board shall give his or her name and address. Each person is allotted 3 minutes to speak until the total time of 30 minutes is used. We will give a 30-second warning so speakers know when their 3 minutes is up. During public participation, each member of the public should direct their comments to the board as a whole. Consistent with our policy, this is not a time to question individual board members or district employees. As a reminder, our expectation tonight is that everyone conducts themselves civilly and respectfully. We will not tolerate profanity, frivolous, repetitive, or harassing statements. And with that said, we have one public speaker tonight, and we'll start with Mr. Scott Taylor.
Thank you, Laura, for this opportunity. I will let you know I'll be running in the turkey trot. I've been training with my son. I'm very excited about that. Chris, I appreciate your comments. I really do. And John, I really appreciate the fact you brought up this question about the ESSCR funding, because I did decide to kind of follow the money a little bit. That's exactly what I did. And when I did look at the ESSCR doc, by the way, before I say this, I just really want to let you know that I really believe that the government has really been, in a slippery way, working with all of us. I want to make that statement first before I say anything else. But basically, when I read the ESSCR guidelines, it says the plan must contain at a minimum the extent to which and how the funds will be used to implement prevention and mitigation strategies that are to the extent practical consistent with CDC guidelines. And what did CDC guidelines say? It said that you will mask kids, that you will do social distancing, you do contact tracing, and that's exactly what the district did. So honestly, I find it hard to believe that the district didn't follow the rules because the ESSCR guidelines said you had to. And you know, I did get the message from my employer that said you need to get the jab or you might lose your job. I talked to other employees that said I'm going to get that jab even though I really don't want to because I don't want to lose my job, which in a way it meant my employer was putting me between my decisions regarding my health and my employment. And when I look at the budget, John, $12 million is a lot of money. And I don't know what the really answer is, but the document does say that these are the requirements. That does have me concerned. And the other one in there it also does talk about is that the state, that states the requirements for social and emotional learning. Well, first of all, one other quote is that that essentially for ESSR fundings, you have to expand the social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs of all students. And when I did a little study into SCL, it says it's seemingly innocent and worthy of teaching, but it does potentially have a dark side. When you talk about the concepts of restorative justice, guiding our kids how to feel, and the concept of equity are implemented, it could be a partner in indoctrinating kids to a
30
politically
seconds.
approved agenda. And that has me concerned as well, because it could be used to manipulate students. I don't know a whole lot about SCL, but I do have concerns about that. And you know, my affidavit process still does continue, but I really wonder who is it really about? Because I really feel that we're all victims of what's going on in our country. Again, I love the city. I love the marching band. I've been there many times. But I wanted to raise these concerns, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right. Ready to adjourn the meeting? May I have a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
One more time.
Okay, first by Angel, second by Lewis. Adjourn time is, roll call.
Mrs. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
All right. Yes, yes, I want.